It's Rock 106.1, Savannah's Rock Station. In studio right now is professional wrestler Darby Allin of All Elite Wrestling, former two-time AEW TNT champion. AEW Dynamite, is coming to Savannah tomorrow at the Enmarket Arena. Tickets start at $20 plus fees. AEWTIX.com. Mandy, don't kill me. I got it right this time. Darby, thank you so much for joining us.
Howdy.
All right. So we are taping this just a little bit before it airs, so I'm going to start off with a bit of a controversial question. And once again, Mandy, who kind of handles everything over here, she may freak out. Just a quick, honest question to you. What the fuck do you think you're doing? Bro, you almost broke your neck versus Takeshi and Powerhouse Hobbs when they threw you across the ring a couple weeks ago. You've been thrown down cement stairs at Daly's place. You jumped off the top of the Dynamite set like 2 weeks ago. Let me just rephrase it. How about this? I'll take out the F word. I'm sorry, Mandy. How do you wake up every day and go, I'm fine? How does that happen for you?
Honestly, I feel like I'm a damn cockroach. It's crazy because injuries in wrestling happen so often, and people always tell me like, slow down, you're gonna retire before Sting. And then I'm just like, dude, I don't know what it is. I'm indestructible and I feel great. That's the crazy thing is people are like, man, you need to okay, this is a funny story. Ric Flair,
okay,
a couple weeks ago, he came up to me. He's like, Darby, you need to slow down. And I was like, wait, what? He's like, you're crazier than Mick Foley. And I was like, getting advice from Ric Flair when he wants to.
But also it was kind of a compliment. I think you took that as a compliment. You're like, I am crazier than Mick Foley.
Well, no. What's funny though is people don't know how great I feel physically. I feel amazing. Like nothing hurts.
Are you like double jointed? Like
I don't think so. I don't know. But like DDP also, because he's like really into fitness and health.
And everything.
Yeah. He's like, man, we gotta put you in a lab and they gotta test you out and see what's going on because you're not human. And then I'm like, all right, man. But I feel amazing. So I won't stop doing so I'm sorry for anybody that's trying to give me advice. All the people out there telling me to slow down, and I can't, and I won't.
Well, I mean, you're different. Yeah, that's the best thing about you. That's why you stand out so much. I mean, you're different, and some of the things you and for everyone who's listening to this, Darby got like power slammed onto some steel stairs by Christian a few months ago, and the moment you hit it, I gasps for me, because I felt it. My 41-year-old body just it melted a little bit when I saw you do that.
You know what I think a lot of it stems from is not ever thinking I'd make it here in the first place. Sure. So I don't take it for granted. Every night I go out there, it feels like the very first time I'm debuting for AEW. So it's like I got to go all out every single night. And never phone it in, never take the night off.
Right.
I don't care for wrestling in front of 3 people at Daly's place during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I don't care for wrestling in front of 80-something thousand people like we did at Wembley. I will perform the same amount, whoever the crowd is. And I think you just can't take it for granted, because I grew up being a dishwasher and all this stuff
Same.
that. Yeah, and I'm like, man. The mental pain is way worse than any of the physical pain I put myself through. And washing dishes or working the 99-cent store, I will never go back there.
I feel that down into my soul, because when I got into radio, I worked at Walgreens overnights in Las Vegas trying to make it in radio. And
I think the Vegas part sounds the worst out of that story.
You know what? The people that would come in and I won't even get into it. This is about you. Let's talk about AEW Dynamite.
It's okay. I'll be your therapist. We can talk about we can talk about what happened to you in Vegas at the Walgreens.
Perfect. Well, no, we'll get into that off the air. I don't want anyone to hear me cry, because that would be awful for everyone involved. Let's talk about you and Sting. Obviously, everyone has probably talked to you about you and Sting. Have been kind of hanging out for 3 years now, and his last match is coming up here in about a little over a month at AEW Revolution up in Greensboro. What are your feelings towards that? It's like you're getting divorced or waving goodbye to grandpa as he goes off to the old folks home or something. What does that feel like, that he's not going to really be there every week with you? And what do you want to aspire to post Sting?
So a lot of it with Sting that people don't get to see is what happens outside the ring. You know, our connection outside the ring. He's actually became a really close friend, and he's one of the most humble, nicest guys ever, which is, he's done everything in wrestling. So it's almost like so easy to almost get an ego from all that.
Right.
But he's like, you know, we first met at Daly's place during the pandemic, and I was changing in the boiler room. Like, I just had the boiler room to myself, you know. I wouldn't change in the locker room or anything like that. Not because I'm a asshole. It's more of, I just like to be left alone and like be left in my own little world, you know. And he walked by the boiler room one day and he's like, "What are you doing in here?" And I said, like, "This is where I change." He's like, "All right, from now on, my locker room's your locker room," because he's got his own private locker room, you know.
Yeah.
So I moved into his locker room, and ever since then, I've never left. Right when we got back on the road, I've always been in there, and he's like so like nice to me, and we can, you know, I don't like. There's just, I go over to his house, and I remember we were rolling around in he had a ring at the time at his house. And originally he came into AEW just to do cinematic matches, which anybody that knows what a cinematic match is, it's pretty much taped like a movie. Yeah, there's no crowd. It's just like, it's literally filmed like a movie.
His first match was that cinematic match in the warehouse.
Yeah.
Where I think you got thrown off of something very high, if I remember quite passionately. But yeah, that match was incredible, and he did an amazing job. But yeah, I guess he got to that rest.
What happened is we were rolling around the ring, and I told him, "Hey man, like, you can still go in a live crowd." And he's like, "I don't know." You know, because at the time, you know, 2014, I believe it was either 2014 or 2015, he had to retire, you know, when he had the neck injury.
Right.
And I remember that was my first year in wrestling. And I remember watching that and watching this man's career essentially end, not on his own terms. And it was really like hard to see, because that's my first year in wrestling. I could only imagine, you know, the decades he's put into this thing. And then, and I was like, "Man, I feel like you still got it. Like, we should really do this thing." Like, and he's like, "Oh man, I don't know." And I convinced him. And then Double or Nothing, when we wrestled Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky for the first time with Sting, actually like in a live match. And then he felt so elated afterwards, and he pulled me off to the side. He's like, "I could have done this without you." And he's still like very vocal about that to this day. He's just like, "Yo, like, I couldn't have gotten this far." And so it's like, to me, it's more than just a wrestling storyline. It's like a part of my life for the last 3 years, and growing a relationship with him, and, you know, everything. It's going to be an emotional night, but I will stop at nothing to make sure his career doesn't end on a high note, because to me, the most important part of his story is the end.
Right.
And if you go out there and you crap the bed in your last match, you're going to remember that. You can't get a second shot in a last match. Well, you can, but he's not the type of guy. When he says something, he's going to retire, he's done.
Yeah, and it's going to be an amazing match between you guys and the Young Bucks.
If that's who it is, we're not 100% sure yet.
Oh,
it's all up to how everything plays out, and if Sting wants to actually go that route. And everything is pretty much up in the air right now, but we're a little less. We're about a month away.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be really interesting. I'm excited for it.
So how do you see yourself post Sting? Do you want to, is there like singles gold, or do you just want to go out there and just wake up every day and just still put out these incredible bangers of matches just on a weekly basis and see where life takes you?
Well, you know, I definitely want to be the face of AEW.
Right.
And I feel like in order to do that, you have to have gold, you know, but I have to go on my Mount Everest self journey, vision quest, you can call it.
Let's talk about that, because you are, obviously it's been out there for a while. In April, you're going to be climbing Mount Everest. Tell us about your training, and then like, what kind of mental space are you going to be in when you take that first step?
So to me, Mount Everest, the idea came up last spring, and it was a way to push myself to the absolute limit. And also, I kept thinking, man, like, what is possible for a professional wrestler? Because sometimes we get stuck in this little bubble.
Sure.
Where wrestlers just, all they talk about is wrestling. All they care about is wrestling. And I'm like, there's a whole world out there. That's why, you know, I do the things I do outside the ring, like the Nitro Circus or the skateboarding with Tony Hawk, or, you know, all the shenanigans is a reflection of me trying to push the boundaries of what a wrestler is typecasted as. Because if you think about like, oh, so for example, like people that don't know what I look like, they're like, okay, a pro wrestler is coming to Nitro Circus. Like the first time, a lot of the Nitro Circus guys did not know what I look like. They're like, so it's gonna be like this 300-pound steroid dude coming here. And then I pull up like, whoa, I was not expecting this smaller guy. But it's like when you see what I do in the ring, it just, the size does not matter. So I was thinking to myself, like, man, what's something a wrestler hasn't done? And I kept Mount Everest, like, kept calling my name for some reason. And then I was like, I want to do this. And then, so that's like a big goal of mine, is to be the first ever professional wrestler to climb Mount Everest. But it's just like, it's just reminding myself what's capable and what's possible in this world, because I feel like the crazier I get, the more like walls break down for me, like, and I feel like anything's possible, like mental barriers in a way. And I'm like, man, like, no, to me, I firmly believe no one is stronger mentally than I am in AEW. Like what I put myself through, what I'm willing to do to keep like pushing the boundaries.
Right.
It's like, there's people that talk and it's like a gimmick. Like I'm fearless or I'm a psycho, but I live it. Yeah. And I'm not going to be this fake pro wrestler that's just talking.
There's people that talk and there's people that do, and you've proved it that you do.
And then I want to continue to do, but I want to push the boundaries and like show like what AEW gives me inside the ring and outside the ring, because that's the most important part of my life, is not just what happens in the ring, but like the freedom I get outside the ring to express myself.
Again, we're here with Darby Allin of All Elite Wrestling. Tickets on sale for AEW Dynamite. That is tomorrow at the Enmarket Arena. Tickets available at AEWTIX.com. So we've covered Mount Everest. We've covered Sting. I'm sure you've talked these ad nauseum. Let's talk about skateboarding, because you were talking about your outside passions of wrestling. I know skateboarding is big for you. How did you get into skateboarding? And I grew up with like CKY, Can't Kill Yourself videos, and I threw myself off the roof into bushes, and we used to record on VHS tapes, and I would do all that stupid stuff as a kid. Turns out I have no balance, can't dance. I'm a white guy. What I'm trying to say is, did Camp Kill Yourself kind of inspire you? Like, is that like, what's the driving force that really got you into skateboarding?
I would say Bam.
Yeah.
Bam Margera. Definitely.
Grew up watching all of his TV shows.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's cool because now it's like a full circle. Like we text every day. He's going to be coming to my house this week to skate in Atlanta.
Awesome.
And I feel like when I saw that as a kid, it made me realize that there's a life out there where you could make a living being a psychopath. Because I felt like everybody I was surrounding myself with was playing it so safe in life.
Right.
They're like, oh, I need to go to school. I need to do this. I need to, like, pretty much just like everybody, like there's like a like, all right, you have to follow these steps. And I was like, man, like no one wanted to take a risk. And so I kind of just I played it safe I went to film school in Arizona, and I dropped out and everything like that. And then the moment I dropped out, I was like, all right, I'm going to do things my way, and I'm not going to compromise or change for anybody. So that's like when I first started wrestling. I was like, I'm not going to be told what to do. I'm not going to be told how to wrestle or like what to wear or anything like that. Like if I fail, I'm going to fail being myself. But skateboarding, people are like, yo, how can you take all this punishment? I think it's from skateboarding. All the years of skateboarding, nothing's harder than concrete. Nothing's harder than concrete.
And I've seen a bunch of your videos, and you have met concrete more than anyone I've seen in your recent past after watching all of them.
Yeah, skateboarding to me was an outlet because, growing up, I did a lot of team sports. But then I got to this age, around 8th grade, where I felt like I didn't want to rely on anybody anymore. I didn't want to rely on a team. I wanted to kind of just be in charge of myself. In skateboarding, it's just you and the board. You can just step out your front door and get lost for hours on this thing, and you don't have to have a coach or you don't have to any, you know what I mean?
Right.
So like it gave me a some self-expression, and it was like real fun to just go crazy out there.
Man, I same. We used to get really drunk, and when I was 19, 20 years old, my buddy would he bought a house because he got a girl pregnant. That's what you do. And he had a fence that went between his garage and his house. So one night we built like this really crappy like rampway, and we skateboarded by throwing ourselves through the fence because he didn't want any more. And we found out that I missed a nail by about an inch going right into like my jugular after we decided to throw the flashlights up. So there is something very liberating about skateboarding. I'm not good at it, is what we found out, because I fell through a fence kind of on purpose. But yeah, it is a thrill. And it's great to have, obviously, something outside that of your main profession that defines you.
Yeah, that's I built a big skate park in my backyard, and I tell people this all the time. There is no amount of money you can pay me to stop skateboarding, because my first year in wrestling, I put down the skateboard because I was like, I need to focus on wrestling, and I stopped skating for like about a year and a half, and then I just felt like something was missing, but I couldn't pinpoint what at the time. And the moment I just like picked up my skateboard from like my trunk when I was like homeless living in Atlanta, like I just started cruising around the parking garage. I'm like, this was it. Like, this was it. Like, this is what was missing. So I was like, I'm never going to like put it back down. So it's pretty big to me to keep that a huge part of myself and, not lose what brought me to the dance.
How cool is it that they put the skateboarding in the video game?
Oh, that's cool.
Come on, that's pretty rad. Right?
That's cool. Yeah, no, it's cool. Like, it's just, I think when you see a lot of wrestlers and then you see me, you're like, wait, what's that? Like, who's that guy? Like, what's that all about? And, a lot of cool stuff's been able to happen through AEW and involving the skate world. I had my article in Thrasher came out this month, and I had a board collab with Death Wish, which is one of the biggest like companies there is. And I just meeting Tony Hawk and doing all this stuff. So I just take the ball and run with it, because being on AEW on national television, it opens a lot of doors.
Yeah, so. And just checking out your social media, you've been quite busy with quite a few things, and obviously Mount Everest coming up. So first and foremost, I want to thank you once again for coming and hang with me here inside the Rock 1061 studios. AEWTIX.com is where people could buy tickets. You're going to be there tomorrow night, AEW Dynamite. Now, one thing you mentioned real quickly was you mentioned that you were homeless and you were living in a car, and that story's been out there. I think you talked about it on the Jericho podcast a couple years ago, where you moved to Georgia, you were living in your car, you were going to Anytime Fitness and cooking things and showering, and you were kind of, I'm guessing, working out maybe? Do you still have an Anytime Fitness membership?
I do. I do. Yeah.
Is it because you don't know how to cancel it?
No, it's because when I'm on the road, I feel like they're everywhere.
Right.
So I love Anytime Fitness. It saved my life.
Well, one of the stories that you told in Thrasher magazine, which is out, the latest issue, is you would actually like cook food in the Anytime Fitness, like what, salmon or chicken or something?
Well, yeah, chicken. I'm a pescatarian now, so I don't eat meat. But back then, I used to be like a full blown like just like cooking chicken and like all this like the different spices on it.
Just doing some stir fry.
Well, what I would do is I would start the George Foreman, I'd put the chicken in, and I'd take a shower. So by the time I got out of the shower, the chicken was like done. So then I would be like eating it, but like I tried, and then every time I'd open the door, the whole like smell of baking food, it like hit the whole gym.
You just made everyone hungry. Well, you broke everyone's resolution.
These people, these people are so confused. Like, what is that smell? And but you gotta, because man, I didn't have any money back then. The thought of going to a restaurant and spending money, I was like, man, this is like a week's worth of money for food at the grocery store, and
right.
So I was like, man, I was so picky, but now I can go to a restaurant. But it's like, it was a fun experience. I actually liked being homeless a lot, because there was no, you couldn't get complacent or lazy. You kind of had to get rocking and rolling right when the sun came up, especially in Georgia, like when it's like 100 degrees and the humidity. Like the last thing you can do is like sit and like watch YouTube all day in your back seat. You got to get moving. And then that was like super fun for me. So.
Well, I saw that story, and obviously I read it and heard about it, and I hope you don't mind. I got you a little gift. I couldn't help myself. I really couldn't. So,
What
Darby,
is this?
I'd like to give you
Brand
new George Foreman grill. I went out.
Oh,
and,
my God.
That's for you. Just so you know, I know you have a house now that can go in your house, or if you would like to hit somebody with it on AEW television.
Ain't nobody getting hit with this. You can't hurt the goods, man. George Foreman. Oh, thank you so much.
I just
full circle.
I wanted to make sure that you had.
Full circle.
I want to make sure that you had a George Foreman grill before you walked out of the Rock 106.1 studio. So
this is awesome. Thank you, sir.
Once again, Darby Allin, All Elite Wrestling, Enmarket Arena tomorrow night. Get your tickets AEWTIX.com. Darby, once again, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I feel like I've made it. This is awesome.
That's so awesome.
Dude,
It's got chicken on
I
it.
haven't used one of these since 2017. That's so cool.